new. But there is a legitimate question about what to do with these parents who do cross the borders with their children. Do you treat them differently than other people crossing the border illegally? So if I'm reading you correctly, you are saying the White House wants to charge each person who crosses the border illegally with criminal charges. You're saying, no, don't do that. We're not going to detain you. If you have kids, we're just not going to detain you, period. That's your answer?
Well, my answer is that we don't have to criminalize everyone that's coming here seeking asylum. That we had a process that I think was effective when people came to the border seeking asylum with their families, with their kids, when they were worried for the life of their children. We didn't treat them as criminals for seeking a way out of the violence. We put them through the asylum process where they would get adjudicated, whether they had a valid asylum case, in which case they could stay, or they didn't have a valid asylum case, in which case they were deported. But we did it in a humane way. And we did that, yes, in part because these are children. And whether the parents have a good case or a bad case for asylum, we weren't about to punish the children. But this president has shown a willingness to punish the children.
If someone crosses the border without children, do you feel it's to detain them?
I think it is appropriate to detain them under certain circumstances, yes.
Then the problem then becomes is, doesn't that incentivize you to bring your child across the border? If you're saying, if you come without a child, you get detained. You come with a child, you don't get detained.
Well, it's not a simple question as whether somebody has a child or not. As I was saying, inappropriate circumstances, where somebody has a culpable claim of asylum, I don't think it's appropriate to treat them as a criminal, whether they have their kids with them or not. I think you do need a mechanism to make sure that they show up in court, and we have a mechanism to do that that was working fine, that can always be improved. But yes, we do treat the situation differently when there are children involved, and I think that's a humane thing to do. But again, not every case is going to be the same, either with kids or without. You've got people who are simply crossing the border, adults unaccompanied by any minors, who are illegal immigrants. They're not seeking asylum. Then you have people who are coming who are seeking asylum. And then you have others coming who are seeking asylum with children. And you don't necessarily treat all those categories of people the same way.
It's a very complicated situation. There's simply no question about that. And sometimes when you try to find a simple answer, it leads to unintended consequences. I don't know whether this was an unintended consequence, separating the children from their parents, or whether it was intended based on the messages that the White House and the administration sent over time. It does seem that they wanted it to be a deterrent. But just last question on this, and I will move to other grounds here. You know, you read the New York Times, you read other stories about people moving toward the border, and you do hear accounts where people will tell you, these immigrants or migrants, when they're there, will tell you, we've been told if we bring a child, we have a greater chance of getting and staying in the United States. Is that a problem?
You know, it's certainly an issue, and we don't want kids to be used this way to try to improve the chances of being able to immigrate to the country improperly.